So, people think this movie is a raging dumpster fire. Some people think this movie is so bad that it actually makes the 2010 movie more competent. I'm sorry, are you high? Because I don't think we watched the same movie. Did I watch something great? No. Did I watch something that was actually really good? No. But what I saw was way better than what everyone was saying it is. Like, people are thrashing this movie all to hell, and that had me dropping my expectations pretty low, which were already low in the first place. I mean, it's a January Blumhouse horror movie. I mean, you kind of usually get what you expect with those, but thanks to Megan, I've had actual expectations for these now. Not to mention, this is a new take on the classic Universal Monsters Wolfman. So, it had expectation, and I dropped them pretty low because a lot of people were calling this movie a dumpster fire. But when I finally watched it, honestly, decent movie. Like, I don't really get where the hate's coming from. Then again, I'm the guy that likes The Crow, so what the hell do I know? Anywho, let's talk about this new version of The Wolfman and why I think this movie is maybe worth your time, but still full of a lot of problems. What's up? What's happening? What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to Animation Station, your number one source for animation, including TV and movies as well. I'm your host, Justin Small. Welcome to my review of the 2025 reboot of The Wolfman by Blumhouse. The same people that tried to reboot The Strangers last year to a horrible, cataclysmic failure. And from the reviews of this movie, I was expecting the same thing. A disastrous, terrible remake that craps all over the original and just insults its audience with the same stupid horror garbage that we've come to expect from this company. But what I got instead, by the time I was done watching it, was a pretty solid, well-made, competent, and interesting little horror film. Now, I don't think this movie's great or even that good, honestly. But considering this is Blumhouse, I will take what I can get. Yes, this is no Megan. Yes, this is nowhere near Five Nights at Freddy's. But I think this movie's pretty decent, and it does have some of its own strengths. So, I have a pretty short written review for this one that pretty much sums up all my thoughts because I can't go super deep into it because spoilers. So, here's my review for The Wolfman 2025 and why I think it's worth at least one watch. I had my expectations set really low going into this one after seeing the critical thrashing it was getting, but in all honesty, it's a perfectly decent film. Story was cool. I do like how it tried to be a tragedy, a lot like how The Invisible Man was reinvented in 2021, I believe, if I remember correctly, where that movie was reinvented into like a abusive romance drama thing and somehow worked. This one kind of does the same thing, but this time being a tragedy about a father losing himself to a monster within his own DNA when he's trying to protect his daughter from all these other things after having it nailed into his head by his father to, watch out for his own. And he ends up falling to the dark side. Now, this isn't really a spoiler, it's in the damn trailers, but yeah, that part is interesting to me, and I do think that they actually executed that concept pretty well in the story. Now, it is very slow, but I think it is a slow digression done surprisingly well. And a big reason why it's done so well is because the acting was surprisingly really good, and leagues better than most of the other Blumhouse movies released in January. Like, the acting in this movie was actually really good. Like, that's the one thing that surprised me about this movie the most. Like, the characters are generic as all hell, but the acting sells them. Like, whether it's the daughter, whether it's Charlotte, whether it's our main protagonist, kind of, to even, like, a side character or two that pops up every now and then. Like, they're all really well acted, and I actually really found myself invested in what was going on. Which, again, this is Blumhouse we're talking about. That just sounds crazy, but it's the truth. The acting was really good in this movie, and that was the thing that surprised me most about it. The characters are solid. They're very cliche. They're very what you expect, and every now and then they have their dumb horror movie moment. But every now and then, overall though, they are solid characters. I didn't really hate any of them. Even the little side character that pops up for like a few seconds, he wasn't annoying. He didn't drag the story down. He was just there to help sell the impact. And I think that was actually really smart. Not to mention, this movie has a pretty small cast, too, of just mostly 3 people. That's really hard to do for a horror movie, especially one made nowadays. So, that in itself is pretty admirable. The directing is competent. This is Lee Whannell we're talking about here. And he continues to show that he is a very good director and he knows what he's doing. Like, this doesn't feel like it was made as amateur as possible. This is something that felt like it was actually made by someone who believed in the idea and who wanted to bring this idea to life. Again, this is Blumhouse we're talking about. It's rare to actually find genuine passion in the directing. The cinematography is really good. They actually got really creative with the camera tricks in this one. Like, the way that you see, like, vision shift when you go to the dad's perspective after he gets attacked by one of these wolves. And the way you see, like, everything around him distort and change, like, that's really cool. Or the way they, like, move the camera with the character, obviously inspired by Upgrade. That's actually really cool. And the one scene that I think everyone can agree was actually pretty good is the scene that's in the trailer, the ambulance scene, where you have the family dangling from their moving truck off of this cliff that's hanging off of a tree, and you have this unknown, insane, demented monster trying to take them out. So they have to literally get out of the top, one of the side doors, and walk across the top of it without the thing falling down. Not to mention, there's already someone laying on the ground below getting ripped to shreds. Like, that's as tension gets, and the cinematography really sold that. Not to mention the movie itself actually looks really nice. And the final act is awesome. I cannot really go into depth about it because spoilers, but I'll just say that it gives you what you want in a werewolf movie, and it's pretty damn good. Not to mention, the actual ending does a great job selling the tragedy of the overall story. So, yeah. But unfortunately, that's where the positives end, because this movie still has a lot of problems. Such as, the werewolf design kind of sucks. No, it's not that weird white-haired thing that you've been seeing in some of the marketing. That's actually not the main werewolf. It's the one that was in the trailer, but it's not the main one. But the main werewolf design you do get still kind of sucks, especially in comparison to both the 2010 version, which actually had a pretty good looking werewolf, and of course the classic 1941 version, which is just iconic in every sense of the word. The pacing's really slow. This is very much a slow burn movie, and at times it does feel like it moves too slow and just wastes time. There's way too many scenes of dead silence that mostly add up to nothing or a bland jump scare. Yeah, this movie has jump scares. It's Blumhouse. You gotta expect that. And when it does all this build-up and then leads to nothing, it just leaves you like, well, what's the freaking point then? Well, why would you waste like 3 or 5 minutes of my time having this one guy move through this house just for nothing to happen? Like, come on. And the rewatchability is low. Yeah, I don't really feel a need to watch this movie again, but I didn't actively hate myself while watching it, so it's better than most werewolf movies. I was expecting a colossal dumpster fire that was even worse than the 2010 remake, but instead I got a well-made and overall decent werewolf movie that, while I probably won't watch it again anytime soon, I'm glad I saw it. Sure, you can do better, and it's nowhere near the quality of the 1941 classic, but you can also do much worse. It's at least watchable, which, considering... My computer will stop falling asleep. Which, considering how terrible Blumhouse's January movies usually are, excluding Megan, makes it an improvement. It's worth a watch, but just once. It is a one and done movie, but I do think it's worth at least one watch. If you end up not liking it, it's entirely understandable as to why, but if you do end up enjoying it, well, then I'm glad I was able to point you in the direction of a movie that actually gave you entertainment. So, yeah, surprisingly decently positive review for this one that may or may not get me crap on the internet, but yeah, it's a decent film. Like, I don't really get the dumpster fire hatred that this is getting online. Yes, it has some bad elements. Yes, it's nowhere near the quality of the 1941 version. And yes, it is no Invisible Man 2021. But it's a decent enough werewolf movie. It gives you what you want, and it does tell a pretty interesting story, and the acting really does carry it. So, because of that, it all averages out to about a final verdict of a solid, decent 6 out of 10. It's a one and done, but it's a decent film. I don't think it's anywhere near as bad as most people say it is. And while it probably won't make my best list, it's absolutely not making the best list. It's not going to be on the worst list either. It's a perfectly solid, entertaining werewolf movie that I'm glad that I saw. So, yeah, that's pretty much all my thoughts on Wolfman 2025, and now I wait to see how I'm going to get absolutely castrated in the comments section. So, thank you guys so much for watching. Please don't forget to like, share, and subscribe if you enjoy more content like this almost every single day. And I'll see you in the next review.
Soon forget, so listen and you won't regret. Be true to yourself, don't miss your chance, and you won't end up like the fool who ripped his pants.